Hi. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you, David, for that introduction. I met many of you yesterday. I'm excited that you're here. This is one of the first in-person things I've done since COVID. So I'm super happy to be in person with you all today. That always gets me excited because my background was in education. I was a teacher for 5 years, and so I'm used to that interaction with people. So today we're going to be doing something really exciting. We're going to be using a program for our presentation that's going to allow you to interact with me today and with some of our questions. So either on your cellular device or on your laptop or whatever it is that you have with you, you can join the presentation. You can either scan the QR code if you know what QR codes are. If not, that's okay. You can go to menti.com and you can enter the code 5458-2447. And this is going to allow us to get some feedback from you. And I'm going to have some questions that you can answer on your phone. You'll be able to follow along with the presentation on your phone. You'll be able to answer our poll questions, and then all of our audience answers will go up on the screen for us. How cool is that? Okay, very cool. My wonderful husband-to-be, Ariane, is here in the back doing our recording today, and I got this idea from him, so very cool. All right, so I'll let you continue to get set up on that, and we'll go ahead with our slides. And the other really cool thing is I understand there are people participating virtually out there in cyberspace. Welcome and hello to all of you. And if you're following along virtually, you'll be able to participate in our program as well using menti.com. Okay, so let's test your skills and let's get started with a question. And the first question is, where are you from today? So if you're following along on your phone or your laptop, you will have this map show up and you can simply tap where you're from, and all of our answers will pop up on the screen for us. And we'll see where folks are from today. I met a lot of you yesterday who are from here, so that's exciting, and some that are far away. Oh, wow. Okay, so we've got Texas, Alabama, Illinois in the house, Iowa, Missouri, of course, South Carolina. Very exciting. All right. Who else do we have? A few more from Texas. Okay. No one from the West Coast? All right. Great, great. Some of you have traveled from far away, some from nearby. Oh, we got some East Coasters. Very cool. I myself am from a little place called Toledo, Ohio. Anybody heard of Toledo, Ohio? Okay, a few people. I spent 10 years in Cincinnati, grew up in Toledo, Ohio, moved to Cincinnati, became a teacher. I taught for 5 years there and then joined the family business as a financial planner. Worked in Cincinnati for about 10 years. And then last year decided to move back to Toledo to be closer to family because we live in this new virtual world where a lot of things are possible virtually. So very cool. Well, I'm super excited for all of you that are here today from all different parts of the country. Let's give you one more question today. Let's find out a little bit more about who's here. And I'd like to know two things: your practice area and the number of people in your firm. I have a feeling that we've got a lot of solo and small firms, so that's cool. So go ahead and answer those two questions on your Menti, and we'll see who we have today. We've got some law students in the building. Welcome. All right, starting early. Good. Retirement planning as a law student. Fantastic. That's very good. Personal injury, wills and trusts, family and criminal in terms of size. Got us some solos, some larger, a little bit larger firms, 25. Okay, litigation. All right. Law student seems to be the most popular one there. All right. Employment law, IP, creditors' rights. Great. We've got a broad spectrum of practice areas represented, and that's very exciting because we're going to talk about selling your law practice a little bit and how that applies to various different practice areas. Okay, very good. All right, well, I encourage you to keep following along on your Menti. There's going to be some links and resources that I share with you as we go along, and you'll be able to tap on those links or click on those links, and they'll take you right to those resources as we move through today's presentation. And I am probably going to be terrible at times, so Dave, and I understand I have a timekeeper in the back, hopefully. Great, great. Joan, if you want to wave your arms when it's time, like halfway through time, that'd be great. Okay, okay. Halfway through would be good too. That'll help me out. All right. So welcome to Retirement Planning for Law Firm Owners. And this is going to apply to solos, small firms, even big firms too, because the truth is, being a partner at a big firm, you're very much a law firm owner as well, and an owner of a business within a business. My name is Darren Wirtz. My moderator here is Dave Barber, who you've met earlier. Thank you, Dave, for that wonderful introduction. And we'll hear more from Dave in a little bit. So a little bit about who I am. Let me just tell you a little bit about my background. I mentioned I'm from Toledo, Ohio, and I'm clicking to the wrong slide here. There we go. I'm a certified financial planner. My company is a small family company with my dad and my brother. There's the three of us there. I have a master's degree in financial planning from Golden Gate University. I'm the author of The Lawyer Millionaire, published by this very organization, and there's books in the back. If you're interested in getting a book, and I'll be happy to sign it for you. One day that signature might be worth something. I'm also the host of a very exciting podcast called the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, and I absolutely love the podcast because we have conversations with law firm owners themselves to come on and talk about their struggles, their victories, their insights, their wisdom, things that they've learned along the way. You can learn more at thelawyermillionaire.com. Unlike many financial advisors, I chose to specialize in working with law firm owners specifically because I realized there's some things that law firm owners really need some help with. And there's some great opportunities being a business owner and having that ability to be entrepreneurial. There was some talk yesterday about the entrepreneurial mindset. I enjoyed that conversation very much. And I encourage you to think that way. Think as a business owner. It's very exciting stuff. Some of the common things I see among law firm owners, and maybe you've experienced this, is, hey, I'm making great money, but I don't have any money to show for it yet. And I don't know where all the money's going. So that's a common thing that I help law firm owners figure out. There's the podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you want to go. And then the book as well. There's a coupon code, TLM23. Will get you 30% off if you buy it through the ABA bookstore. Okay, enough about me. Let's get into our topic today. We've got three areas that we're going to look into. First, we're going to talk about defining your retirement. And I phrase it that way for a reason, and you'll find out why. The second thing we'll get into is aligning your firm's succession plan with that definition of retirement. And then finally, we'll talk about preparing for the eventual transition into retirement. What are some steps that you need to take professionally and personally? Okay, so we got another poll question. Are you ready? So get out your phone or your mobile device or your laptop and tell me, what does retirement look like for you? I'm curious. I get a broad range of answers, and I'm excited to see what your definition of retirement is. Is it a beach somewhere? Is it a mountainside? Is it a villa in France? Is it Costa Rica? What does it look like for you? Not sure I have one. Okay, some honesty. I love it. Thank you. That's okay. Living comfortably within my means. Fantastic. Cabin in the woods. Okay. I love it. Puerto Rico, traveling and family. Very exciting. I have some clients that are retiring to Mexico, to the mountains of Mexico. They bought a house in Mexico. They're moving there. The cost of living is less, and that's where they're going to live in retirement. Retirement can be whatever you want it to be. Continuing to travel, having financial security, living in peace, and only doing the things that make my heart smile. I love that answer. Beaches, more traveling, comfort. You'll see traveling is often a very common feature of many people's dreams for retirement. Very good. Thank you so much for those answers. How about fears? What fears do you have when it comes to retirement? We talked about the exciting stuff. What about the scary stuff? What's your biggest fear that you think of when you contemplate retirement? No plan, no money. Yes, that's a common one. Absolutely. Still paying student loans. You know, this is such a great answer. And I was having a conversation with somebody about this last night, being mid-career and still having student loans lingering. It's a very big concern. It's becoming even a bigger concern. So I'm excited for the law students that are here today, because law school hasn't gotten less expensive, certainly, and it's only getting more expensive. No plan, no money, not having enough money, some common themes here. Anything else? Healthcare, forced to work, can't retire. Yeah. Great answers. And, you know, one of the common things that I find with law firm owners is having a sense of purpose. How can I retire? I'm a lawyer. This is what I do. This is who I am. That's a very difficult transition. Bad health. Yes, health, money, very common responses. And we're going to talk about the money thing, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose thing too. So stay tuned for those. Okay, let's talk about defining your retirement. Step one. You begin by defining what your goals are. When I do retirement planning with people, we start by asking some real big questions. What's important to you? Oops, how do I get my, there we go. What does your ideal retirement look like? What are you passionate about? What gives you a sense of purpose? What does your ideal lawyer lifestyle look like? And maybe some more specific questions like, where do you want to live? Do you want to live on the coast, in the mountains, geographically? And finally, thinking big, long-term, what are your values? What are your legacy goals for your family, for your kids? What do you want to set them up with, right? And in my work with clients, we will come up with a personal financial mission statement. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Come up with a sentence or a vision that's going to unify your financial goals together, that's going to be your sense of purpose, and it's going to motivate and drive you to put money away. You know, nobody is really inspired by the idea of saving money. We all know we should save money. So how come we don't? Because it's like, oh, I got to put money away. Oh, yeah, I know I should be saving more money. But you know what people are inspired by? What you might be inspired by? This isn't my retirement fund. Maybe this is my Puerto Rico villa fund, right? You know what I mean? Okay, now suddenly that's a bit more inspiring. That's a bit more realistic, right? So I encourage you to think about your retirement and your saving for retirement that way. Let's talk about retirement options for law firm owners. This is where it gets really exciting, because you have a lot of different ways you can retire, because you are the master of your own destiny. Whoops, I gotta figure out how to do these buttons. Anyway, you could never retire. That's one option. That may not be the best one, okay? But it is a response that I hear from a lot of folks. They want to just keep working. They have no idea what they want to do in retirement. And maybe the issue is not taking a chance to really step back and say to ourselves, what am I really doing all of this for? You know, we get so busy working, we get so busy running our practices, we forget to step back and say, what is all this for? We wake up one day and we've built this profitable business and we are like, okay, now what? You might not think you want to retire at this point, but you might at some point. I challenge you to really think about what you really want your life to look like. It could involve downshifting. Maybe instead of retiring completely, you're just going to scale back a bit while you let other people in your firm step up. Maybe you're going to continue to work, but you're going to work more on your time. You could retire early. Not a common response from many folks, but actually what I do find is common among law firm owners is to maybe retire from the practice of law itself and maybe start something new, like a consulting business, right? That could be a second phase. Maybe think about retirement as your next phase, right? Your next career. And another idea would be to scale up and to scale out. Scale up your practice, bring on associates, bring on support staff who can carry the workload, elevate people to positions of leadership. You then scale out into more of a visionary chairman or chairperson role, right? Where you are the owner of the business. You come in a few days a week, the business runs itself. That could be exciting. Okay, I've got another question for you. How much money does it take to retire? That's what we all want to know, right? Tell me what you think. Is it 100,000, 500,000, a million, 3 million, or 5 million or more? Okay, we've got a little bit of a consensus building. Oh, a nice bell curve distribution. I love it. Yes, as a math person, yes. So it looks like, people are feeling somewhere between 1 and 3 million. Susie Orman did an article a while back where she said you needed $5 million to retire. Well, the answer is it really depends on you and what you want your lifestyle to look like. I could retire today, but I would only be able to afford, to spend a couple $1,000s a year maybe for the rest of my life, right? So it really is dependent on what your standard of living is going to be and what you want to do. If you want to retire to a yacht somewhere, that's going to take a lot more than a little cabin in the woods somewhere, right? So that's what we're going to talk about next. Determining your retirement budget and what retirement looks like for you. I have a question for you. You don't have to raise your hand and answer. How many of you can raise your hand in your head, are tracking your expenses? A lot of people don't. And when I talk with people, most of the time, the answer is they're not tracking their expenses. They have no idea how much they're spending on a monthly basis. And usually we vastly underestimate how much money we're spending. I just met with a client the other day. We did a retirement budget. At first I asked him, how much are you spending on average? He gave me one answer. When we actually broke it down and we went through all of his expenses, it was twice what he had estimated. Right? So this is a big step in preparing for retirement, to know what your spending is like. One great resource is mint.com. If you're following along on the Menti, there's a link there. You can click it. It'll go right there. You can check it out. It's a free tool. It will help you track and organize your expenses. Use that information to create a budget. And a budget is really just a plan for your spending, right? You know where your spending's going. You know what your big expenses are. Then take that budget, your current budget, and adjust it forward to retirement. What things are going to go away? What things are going to be more, like healthcare, right? Maybe your mortgage will go away at some point. So take that list, and then from that list, determine what your retirement budget is going to be. One big thing that people need help estimating often is healthcare costs. And if you're curious about healthcare costs at all, there's a link there that will take you to Medicare's website. For the law students in here, you can ignore this part. For now. And that's a little Medicare cost estimator that you can use. Okay, I do have a free tool, a personal budget worksheet that I'll be happy to send to anybody. You can just email me if you want a copy of it, dpw@wertzfinancialservices.com. I have cards in the back that you can pick up later that'll have that email on it if you missed that. But yes, I have a worksheet that might help you. It's useful in just helping you think through and brainstorm all the things that you may need to spend money on. Okay, next we need to calculate your net retirement income need. And that's a mouthful, but let me explain. Whoops. Let's see here. Okay, so first what you do is you take that number you got from before. If you're determining what your budget is, let's say my budget is $150,000 a year. That's my spending for the year. Then you subtract the sources of income that you'll have in the future, Social Security, pension income, rental income, things like that. And then you come up with your net retirement income need, which is how much money your portfolio needs to give you each year. Now, this is a simplified process, but it's a useful way to kind of estimate where you need to be. So let's say I have a $150,000 current budget. I'm going to get $50,000 from Social Security and other things. Then I need $100,000 a year to be supplemented from other sources, right? Probably my portfolio. Okay, another question for you here. What is the historic long-term rate of inflation? And we'll very quickly be able to see what field of law you're in by your answers. 2%, 3.8, 4.9, or 6.0. Boy, inflation has become a hot topic, right? And what it used to cost to retire is different now, right? After a couple of years of high inflation. Okay, so we have some answers. Some people coalescing around the correct answer, which would be 3.8%. It has been the long-term historic average. So give yourself a pat on the back if you got that one right. Now, lately, over the last couple of years, it's been higher. And there is some concern that it may be higher. And inflation is a big thing that you need to think about in retirement. Because whatever amount you start at, if I start at a annual spending of 100,000, that's going to need to go up each year. Especially if I plan to spend 20 to 30 years retired. What things cost when I'm 65 is not going to be what things cost when I'm 75 or when I'm 85, right? So it's very important to think about inflation. Now, if I need, let's say, $100,000 a year for my portfolio, what size of a portfolio do I need? One easy way to make that determination is called the 4% rule. And the 4% rule is a way that you can estimate the size of a portfolio that you need. Here's how it works. Divide that number, your annual spending that you need in retirement, by 4%. That gives you a conservative estimate for how much money you need. Now, where did the 4% come from? Well, there have been numerous academic studies that have been done to test the 4% withdrawal rate over all kinds of different market environments historically. And what they found is that 4% is generally a safe withdrawal rate, meaning if you start at 4% and increase that budget each year with inflation, there's a very low probability that you will run out of money over a 30-year time period. So what does that look like? For example, we take 100,000 and divide it by 4%, that equals 2.5 million. Now, again, this is a fairly conservative estimate, so you could get away with having less, but it's better to estimate a little bit higher than you need, right? Okay, and then finally, you can factor in the future sale of your law practice. And this is very simple. The math is quite simple here, but I'll show it to you anyway, right? The amount you need to retire, 2.5 million, minus what you could potentially get from your law practice. Let's say that's 500,000. And that gives me 2 million. Now, there are some some much more complex pieces that go into this, obviously, like timing, like taxes, pre-tax and after-tax and all that. But this is a good framework to give you a beginning if you're trying to kind of do some of your own retirement planning. And I tell you what, clients that I work with, they often, while I am their financial planner, they are often also doing their own financial planning as well. And I'd encourage you to do that as well. Even if you are working with a professional, check into the numbers on your own as well. Be as educated as you can about your own numbers. Okay, now let's talk about aligning your firm's succession plan. Once you've defined what retirement looks like to you, the cool thing about being a law firm owner is you can build your practice around that. You can build your practice around the lifestyle that you want to create. So let's talk about that. First of all, why is succession planning important? Well, there's some obvious reasons. Taking care of your clients, taking care of your family. If you own a law practice and something happens to you and your spouse is not an attorney, your spouse is not going to be able to come in and take over and continue running the practice. So this is one reason succession planning is so important. And then if you don't have a succession plan in place, there's no value that's transferable to your family if something happens to you. So this is all about helping you create some value that you can then transfer on to your family members. Taking care of staff and colleagues. We all have an interest, vested interest in that as well. And of course, your ethical obligations. And in fact, in a lot of jurisdictions now, there is some form of succession planning being mandated to have an appointed lawyer who's as a successor. And so a lot of places around the country are realizing that this is such a critical thing. I've seen it happen where law firm owners pass away unexpectedly, and then the state bar has to come in and clean everything up and fix a huge mess. And sometimes that involves paper. Nothing's digital, and no one knows what's going on. And it's just a very, very big mess to deal with. And finally, the most important, well, maybe not the most important, but the most important reason for today and why we're talking about this, that your practice has value. I want to say that again, your practice has value. So many law firm owners I talk with don't really feel like their practice is valuable and like it is something that someone else would want to own, but it does have value. And I'm going to show you why. Does my law practice really have value? Well, here are some reasons why. And yes, all practice areas have value, whether it's personal injury or estate planning or anything in between. It's so funny because personal injury attorneys often don't think their practices have any value. Oh, it's the estate planning people, their practices have value. And then the estate planning folks think that their practice doesn't have any value. Oh, it's more like things like personal injury, those have value. The truth is everybody's practice has value that can be monetized. Now, the caveat here is that law firms don't sell for the premiums that other types of businesses do. So you're not going to be able, and there are a lot of reasons why. Liquidity, who can own it, things like that. But it does have some value. And if you're not thinking carefully and strategically about succession planning, that is money being left on the table. Here's some things to think about. You have something, the primary reason your law firm has value, you have something that all law firms want. Clients. Oh, we're at 30 minutes. Thank you so much. Clients. Your clients are there. Now, can you sell a client relationship? No, you cannot. But as part of a methodical, strategic business transition, you can bring in a new owner and introduce that person to your clients, make them comfortable, and increase the likelihood and the probability that those clients will stick with the new owner and continue with the new owner. And that's how you create value with your client relationships. Now, maybe you don't have long-term clients, right? Maybe your clients are just one-time clients. Well, you still have value because you are building a client database. You're building a huge database of clients that you've worked with. And let me just give you a little tip. If you're not maintaining that database of clients that you have worked with and continuing to stay in touch with them through emails and touch points, do that, because that will increase your referrals. It will increase the size of your business. Those relationships can continue to grow, but you have to be purposeful about maintaining and growing that list of clients' relationships. Assets. All the assets that you have, these are things like physical assets. If you own your office building, that has value. Any of your furniture, things like that. Your financial assets, accounts receivable, work in progress. These are all things that have value. A really, really, really big thing is your marketing and your brand. Your brand, that's probably one of the biggest pieces of value of your business. The reputation and the goodwill that you've built in the community and among your existing network. It's an extremely valuable thing. If you have a website that's really good at driving traffic, that's extraordinarily valuable. These are valuable aspects of your property, of your practice. Another one is intellectual property. Do you have processes and procedures for certain things? Do you have systems that you've created? Do you have templates that you've created? Those have value. You created those, right? I had a law firm owner, James Crawford, on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how he has created this system for working with criminal defense clients that's unique to him, that helps him be extremely efficient and move cases through very effectively and make sure he's doing everything properly and get great results for his clients. That is something that has a lot of value. Another thing is your people. Your people are extremely valuable. How important and how valuable is a great legal secretary or a great paralegal, right? They didn't become that way on their own. You brought them in and you trained them. and you made them efficient and productive, and you gave them tools, and you have helped them become a superstar, they are going to be extremely valuable to a new owner, right? And finally, what can a new set of eyes do with your business? Think about the real estate market, right? A house that someone has owned for many, many years and it stayed the same, and they haven't done anything to it. Someone else comes along and buys that house and starts tearing down walls and ripping things up and making all kinds of new stuff, right? Because they come in with a whole new set of ideas and a whole new vision. And someone else might come in and buy your practice and take over your practice, and they might have a whole new set of ideas that can take your existing practice and elevate it to a whole new level, right? So that's the value of a new owner potentially coming in. Can you really sell your law practice? Yes, you can. However, it's more of a transition versus a transaction. The truth about succession planning for law firm owners is it's a multi-year process, usually somewhere around 3 to 5 years, right? No one's going to hand you a check and say, hey, hand me the keys, I'm the new owner, right? It doesn't work that way for law firms. But if you can start planning and be purposeful and strategic about it, you can actually sell your practice. So let's talk about the 3 succession planning pathways. And there might be more, but these are 3 common pathways that law firm owners undertake to sell their practice. The first would be an external buyout. In this type of a transaction, you are finding a candidate, right, who is out there somewhere who's going to buy your firm, outside your firm. Maybe they're going to come in and join your firm first and get to know your firm and then slowly take over as an owner. Maybe they're a law student, right, who has just graduated and is looking to get a jump start on their career. This is a new and exciting thing that's happening where new lawyers just starting out with their careers are actually interested in buying practices from solo attorneys that are retiring. And it can be very successful if it's done well. And there are buyers out there, by the way. I have a friend named Tom Lenfesty who runs the Law Practice Exchange. Great resource if you're looking for something to, a place to look for tools and ideas about selling your practice. He tells me I have more buyers than sellers. There are buyers out there looking to buy your practice. Absolutely. But there are, I went ahead too fast. I didn't talk about the last 2. Internal transition. Maybe you have a great associate within your organization who would make a great owner. Now, let me caution you, not all attorneys in your organization want to be owners. Some just want to be attorneys. Not all of them want to be owners. Some of them do want to be owners. But the only way you will know, and don't assume, by the way, don't assume because you have a rock star attorney that they want to be an owner. They might just want to be in court every day doing their thing, right? But there might be others that are more interested in the marketing and the visioning and the branding and all of that stuff, right? So have conversations with your staff, with your attorneys. Start talking with them early about their goals and their dreams for their future. Do they want to be owners? What is it that they want? And you know what? By having those conversations, they're going to start to think about it more too. And you're going to start to identify who in your organization can be a great successor. Now, don't walk in one day to the break room and say, hey, everybody, I'm going to retire. You're going to scare them all away. But if you start having those conversations, you can start facilitating that process early. A third and innovative way to sell your practice is through a merger and practice continuation. In this process, what you would do is you would sell your practice to another practice, maybe a larger law firm that's growing, that's looking to acquire practices. They're going to acquire you. You're going to go work for them as a partner or as an of-counsel attorney, continue to service your client relationships and continue to keep those clients happy and help make them feel welcome and at home as part of the firm, right? And that's a very nice, easy way. One of the great benefits of doing it that way is that bigger firms might have more capital and can make that transition easier for you. So that's another way you could do it. Now, we do have to talk about legal and ethical considerations because these are very critical for law firm owners. So here's some things to be aware of. The ABA does have a rule around this that many states have modeled their rules after. 1.17, the sale of a law practice. And here are some highlights from that. Usually, the seller must retire from law practice, right? If you own a law practice and you have an estate planning division, you have a personal injury division, you can't sell the estate planning division and keep the other division, usually, in most cases. Okay, you got to sell the whole thing and you've got to retire. So that's one, they're not like other businesses that way. Another thing to be aware of, the entire practice must be sold, as I mentioned. The purchaser usually has to be an attorney or a law firm owner or an existing firm, although that is changing in some states where they are allowing, in some limited cases, non-attorney ownership. And finally, communication is so critical. Talk with your clients early on. You don't have to tell them, hey, clients, I'm retiring. Don't do that. But you can start having conversations with them about what your future plans are. And if there's someone in your firm that you're elevating to ownership, you can start to incorporate them into those meetings and into those communications with your clients so that your clients become comfortable and familiar with that person. And finally, of course, consult your state's rules because every state is different. Okay, what's a law firm worth? There are a number of ways that you could determine the value of your practice. You could have a professional business valuation done, and you probably want to do that. That's very critical. But there are some other ways that you could do it as well. There's something we call the price to earnings ratio, which is the way a lot of stocks are valued. And I'm going to show you how we could do that. A revenue multiple. So with stocks, most stocks on the US stock exchange trade somewhere between 15 to 20 times earnings, or 15 to 20 times net profit. So the value of a company is somewhere around 15 to 20 times their net profit. Now, law firms don't sell for 15 to 20 times net profit, but that's my next question I'm going to ask you, so I'll save the answer for you. Revenue multiple is a similar idea. Discounted cash flow model, you could take the amount of cash that your law firm is generating, do some funky math to determine your value. And finally, there's the cash or asset value, which is the value of the physical assets, the financial assets, the actual tangible things of the law firm. Well, one other additional very helpful way to estimate your value is market comps. And that is, what are other law practices selling for? And that's probably the most realistic way to do it, because something is only worth what someone else is willing to pay for it. So let me ask you another question. I've got a question for our audience here. And our question is, what earnings multiple would be an appropriate value for a law firm? In other words, what number times net earnings or net profit would be an appropriate multiple? Is anywhere from 0 to 10. On your Menti, on your mobile device or your phone or your laptop, you can choose your answer. If you've gotten knocked off for some reason, you can always rejoin the presentation by going to menti.com and entering the code. So if your firm generates $500,000 a year, what number times 500,000 would be an appropriate value? 1 times 500,000, 2 times 500,000. Let's see what you think. Okay, we have a few answers coalescing here. And I'll give you 10 more seconds to get your answer in. Got a broad range. Again, this is a nice bell curve. And let's see. Okay, the usual correct answer from what we see in the market is somewhere around 2. I know that might be a little depressing, but it's something. It's value. 2 to 3 times is normally what we see. So take your net profit, multiply that by 2 to 3, and that is what you could potentially expect to sell your law firm for. Now, the exciting part of that equation is, how do you increase the value of your firm? Increase the net profit. Absolutely. Okay, let's go on to step number 3, preparing for transition. What do you need to do to get ready for that transition. Once you've defined your retirement, you know what it's going to look like. You've created your succession plan. You have your successor identified. You're getting closer to retirement. Now, what are the things that you need to do? First, let's talk about preparing your firm for transition. There are some very critical things that you need to do to make sure that your firm is ready for you to leave. There are a couple of areas that need to be addressed. One of those areas is business financials. Clean up your business financials. Are you keeping a balance sheet? Are you generating a profit and income statement regularly and reviewing that profit statement regularly, right? These are important things. Do you have a software? Do you have a system to monitor and manage your finances? I talked with someone yesterday who took over a practice from their father, and all the financial stuff was on pen and paper. Oh my, right? That's not going to be very easy for a new owner to come in and take over, right? So get those finances organized, get them up to date, make sure you are doing things legitimately, make sure you built up a nice emergency fund within your business and an emergency fund personally. Are you paying yourself a regular wage? There's one place to start. Make sure you're paying yourself a regular salary, right? A lot of times when I work with law firm owners, they're paying themselves just what's left over. That creates a lot of issues, right? So set things up, have systems, have checks and balances, clean up your finances and your IOLTA accounts. Make sure that you have good accounting for your IOLTA accounts. Everything is accounted for and up to date there as well. Very critical. Personnel and clients. As we talked about before, communication is important, is critical, really. You need to be constantly communicating with your clients and your personnel as you're going through the transition process. There are professionals that can assist you with this, who will assist you in what we call law firm transition and helping you bring on a new owner and making them feel part of the culture, right? Someone doesn't just join your organization and all of a sudden they know everything. You have to proactively work with them, engage them, have company lunches, retreats, gel the organization, make them feel a part of the new structure. And finally, legal organization, making sure you have processes, systems, and procedures in place that have automated and systematized your operations. Because those are the things that you're going to hand off to the new owner. Those are the things that you're going to give them. You're going to give them your SOP, your standard operating procedures, and they're going to have a guideline for exactly how to run your practice. Do you have an SOP? That's something to be working on, to be creating. A great way to create your SOP, your standard operating procedures, is to have them in a live document, like a Google Doc. You can create a video, rather than typing everything out. Create a video of you doing the steps in your process or your system, like a Loom video, and put that into the Google Doc so that whoever's taking over, they can watch the video, they can understand exactly how you do things and how you want things done. Let's talk a little bit more about those best practices for law office management. Now, these things in getting your firm ready for sale are really just good business practices. Interesting, right? And here are a few of those. Creating and maintaining an office procedures manual or standard operating procedures. Using a CRM system to manage and maintain client information. When I started my business, I was using Excel spreadsheets. Many of you may have started that way, and notepads. Use a CRM, make sure that CRM is up to date, is maintained, hire somebody to keep it up to date, to keep it maintained. That's going to be so critical to handing your business off to a new owner. Document and back up your files regularly. Are you using a digital system like Dropbox? Make sure all of those things are up to date and backed up, right? This is the digital age, right? I used to have a file cabinet, and when I finally got rid of that sucker, I was so happy. There was so much more room in the office, right? Get those files up in the cloud. Use time and billing software, and not just have it, use it. Make sure you're using it effectively. A lot of people have time and billing software, but they're not actually using it, right? How many of us have technology that we're not using to its best ability, that we have it because we signed up for it because we thought it was cool, and then we never really got it put into place and implemented? And finally, maintain updated financial records and reports, including IOLTA records and ledgers, as we mentioned before. Okay, that's the business side. Let's talk about preparing personally for your transition into retirement. And here are some things to think about. Your mental and emotional preparation. It is not easy to go from working a 40 to 70-hour week to retired. You have to have a purpose. You have to have something else that's going to motivate you, it's going to give you purpose, and it's going to keep you interested and engaged. Otherwise, either you're going to sit around and do nothing and your health is going to deteriorate, or you're going to go back to work. And I see that happen a lot. How will you fill the 40-hour work week? And then, of course, there is financial preparation. Making sure that you've got your finances in order personally, you have enough funds, you have a plan for your spending, and all of that is in place. Do you have the right risk balance, the right level of risk in your investment portfolio? So let's talk a little bit about that. Here's a graph that some of you may be familiar with, not the law students. But those of you who've been around a little bit longer, maybe if you studied a little bit of finance, you may remember the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. During the 2008 financial crisis, the market declined, the S&P 500 declined by 50%. So let's say you need $2.5 million to retire. You're ready to go. You got your $2.5 million. 2008 comes along. That 2.5 goes to 1.2. Uh-oh. That's a little bit worrying. Thank you. So risk is something that you need to think carefully about. The most dangerous part of retirement is those first few years, before and after, right? If you experience dramatic loss in that window of time, it has the biggest impact on your retirement. So let's have a question for our audience as we're getting near the end here. One more question on your phone or your computer as you're following along. If the market drops 50%, how much do you need? How much growth do you need to recover from that? Tell me what you think. Okay, we got some answers coming in. Seems like everybody's picking the same one, or maybe everyone's just picking what everyone else picked. Okay, are you ready? I'll give you 10 seconds here. Get some more answers put in. The correct answer, and it may shock you, is 100%. If your portfolio gets cut in half, it needs to then double to make up for what you lost. So this is why risk is so important to manage correctly. Now, one of the most basic fundamentals, we're not going to talk about investment portfolios or any of that, but I'll give you a few hints here, okay? One of the most basic ways to manage risk is by adding bonds to your portfolio. But you don't want to add too many bonds because you still need long-term growth. If I retire at 65 and I'm going to be retired for 30 years, I need my portfolio to grow to keep up with inflation, right? So that growth piece is critical. But there was an age-old rule of thumb, if you will, that said your age in bonds, that's what should be, what your age is, should be the percentage of bonds in your portfolio. So if you're 25, 25% in bonds. If you're 75, 75% in bonds. That's one way to think about it. In my opinion, this rule skews a little bit too conservatively. But the basic idea is there. As you age, as you get closer to retirement, you need to think carefully about dialing down the risk in your portfolio, okay? The portfolio you had at 30 is not the portfolio you need at 65. And sometimes we've been so busy running our practice and our business, we forget to do that. Here's a sample, an example for you. This is not from me. This is from Richard Ferry's book, All About Asset Allocation. And if you're looking for a great resource on managing your own portfolio, that's another book I would recommend. Again, that's All About Asset Allocation by Richard Ferry. It's on Amazon or everywhere. But he gives some different portfolios for different age ranges. And this is the one he suggests for transitional retirees, a moderate risk level. And there are other ones in there too, if you're looking for a resource to use. Now, the truth of the matter is you could do a lot of this all on your own. And in many cases, I see a lot of law firm owners managing their own portfolio and their own retirement. And if you take the time to invest in learning and research, you can do a lot of this. And the truth is the basics work. The fundamental principles of managing your finances work, whether you're 20 or you're 75, right? And you can do a lot of this on your own. But should you want to hire a professional, here are some things to look for. A professional can assist you in reducing your risk level. You know, sometimes we just need somebody to talk to help us make those decisions. Sometimes we sit there not knowing what to do or debating between different options, and we just need someone to give us some guidance. Here's some things to look for. Make sure that whoever you work with is a fiduciary. One way to determine that is to see how they're being paid. Are they being paid by commission? Then they have a conflict of interest. If they're a fee-only or fee-based person, generally they are a fiduciary. And make sure that they are free from conflicts of interest. One place you can go to find someone, if you're looking for a CFP, you can go to the CFP's website, letsmakeaplan.org, and you can find somebody there. And then, of course, look for things like, as you would hire anybody, look for things like education, experience, and ask for the references, right? They have other people they've worked with who are happy, right? There are a lot of people who get taken advantage of financially. Do your homework. Make sure you're working with someone who's qualified. Here are some key things to look for. Now, that doesn't guarantee, you know, things will be gravy, but these are some broad strokes that can help you. Okay, that brings us to the end of our presentation, just about. We got about 5 minutes left, and I have books in the back. If you would like one, you can purchase one and I can sign it. But I would also love to give one away. So if you would like to be entered into a chance to win a free book, on your phone as you're following along, if you're on the slide here, there should be popping up a spot for you to put your name and email in. And if you put your name and email in there, I will put those names in a hat and draw a winner and send you a free book. So I'll give you a second to do that. I'll also send you all of our resources from today. So I'll send you a copy of the presentation along with our budget worksheet and a few other things that might be helpful to you as well. So again, on your Menti, on your phone or your device as you're following along. And if you lost your place, it's okay. You can go to menti.com and put the number in up there, and it'll get you right back to where you are, and you can be entered into our drawing. And I believe that brings us to the end. I'll be happy to entertain any questions. If you want to learn more about me, you can scan the QR code there, which will pull up all of my social media pages. I'm everywhere that you can imagine. My phone number and email is there as well. So yeah, any questions? Yes, sir. Is it in the book? Yes. I do expand on, there's a whole chapter on determining the value of your practice, and we go into a little bit more depth on the price to earnings ratio and how to estimate that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Now's your chance. I won't bill you.
I've got one, not necessarily for me, but just in general. I see a lot of times with clients, and I know other attorneys, the same thing happens, where it's like they don't start something because they think things are just too messed up. All right. Can you give us, without naming names or something like that, just give us an example of a situation you came into where an attorney thought, man, I've waited too long, things are not great here, I'm embarrassed even to go talk to Darren, and you came out of it with a good plan and maybe a success story like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I do see this often where people have not done the planning and then it's panic mode. But the truth is, you're not going to make that situation any better by continuing to wait. The best thing you can do is to start now and start getting things organized. And you don't necessarily need the 2.5 million or whatever it is to retire. You could come up with a plan for yourself that is maybe a combination of some work-life balance, maybe working a little bit less, but continuing to work in your firm so that you can retire a little bit later, right? So there are some ways to finagle it. Again, it all comes down to your cost of living, right? I have clients that are retiring on $500,000 or less because they have set themselves up in a way that they have income from other sources that is sufficient to meet their basic needs, and they've put themselves in a place where they're going to be okay, right? So it's never impossible to create a retirement plan. Great question, Dave. Any others? Yes, ma'am. Generally, yeah, that's a great question. I think the things that I look for are the ones that are just so stressed, and the business financials are a mess, and they haven't even thought about succession planning, right? Those are the ones that are maybe not thinking long term. But then there are others that, and also the ones that are maybe kind of just trying to go it alone completely. I find that the ones that are more long-term thinking are ones that have engaged with other professionals. They've worked with coaches, they've worked with accountants, they've hired a CFO, right? They've hired a bookkeeper. You've got to do those things because that's going to free you up to work on the business, which is what you need to do. And working on the business isn't something you necessarily get paid to do, but it's so critical to expanding that business and taking it to that next level. Yeah. So that would be one of them. I think people that have looked for help and are willing to get that help. Yeah.
Right, once again, CLE forms are in the back of the room. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah.